Welcome to the Cambridge Financial Podcast with Bert Salazar, CEO at Cambridge Financial Partners, LLC. This podcast is all about tax-preferred retirement planning, economics, financial risk management, and achieving a risk-free and successful financial life. Now, your host, Bert Salazar. Bert Salazar. Bert Salazar.
Hey, good day, everyone. Welcome to another Your Tax-Free Life podcast. This is episode 108, and the title of this episode is Don't Ever Get Between a Dog and a Fire Hydrant. Now, this may seem and sound kind of funny to you, but I'm going to make an analogy which I think is going to be very critical for those of you that are listening to the podcast today. As you know, we're going through the COVID-19 financial and bear market, as I call it. Is not only a medical pandemic, but it's also an economic pandemic. And I would imagine that we're going to have that economic pandemic for quite some time now. I understand that the President of the United States is very upbeat, someone who's very optimistic, and I'm also very optimistic. But when you start looking at the underlying economics that we're living through in this country with the unemployment and the potential bankruptcies and the foreclosures and the debt in our country and the national deficit that we have today, obviously it's going to take a little bit longer for this market to recover in the next several months, or it may take even 1 or 2 years. So, but in the meantime, I'm here every day trying to maximize the opportunity in giving you information, because at the end of the day, information without education always leads to failure. And I was referred to a very nice couple about a week and a half ago. And then last week, we had a video conference, I think it was on Tuesday. And this couple, they're in their mid-60s. He's 66. And she's 64. They've been married 35 years, I believe. And their children are already grown up and out of their house and so forth. And one of the challenges that they're having is that before this pandemic started in January, they actually had just north of $800,000 in their retirement account. So it was a combination of a 401k, IRA, and so forth. She had been a school teacher for many years, so she had some of those assets in a 403b as well. Now, obviously, she's getting a pension because she worked for the Dade County Public Schools here in South Florida. And he's been in private business for a number of years and then sold the business. So they've done fairly well financially. But they were very concerned because when they opened their statements this past March, they realized that their $800,000 and change of retirement assets and all of those retirement accounts that they had dwindled down to about $647,000. Now, $647,000 is still a lot of money, but not even close to, I think it was $805,000 or $807,000 that they had early in January at the high point of the market. So they're pretty scared. They were having a conversation with someone who's a very good client of mine, and that person says, look, I'm going to give you Bert Salazar's information. Please reach out to him. He's not going to charge you anything. He'll have a conference call with you or a video conference, whichever way you want to host it. And then you can pick Bert's brain about, your concerns and your fears and so forth. So my client did call me and gave me the information. But before I could contact the clients were already emailing me and leaving me voicemails. So this was on Tuesday when we talked for the first time. And we had a really good conversation for about 25 minutes. I asked them to get some of their statements for me so I could see what type of asset allocation they had and what were some of the options, and then we scheduled another call for Thursday. When we had the conversation on Thursday, obviously I kind of reviewed what they had done, where their investments were, and so forth, and then I started to drill down as to, number one, what do they want these assets to do for them in retirement? normally I ask two questions. What do you want the assets to do for you right now while you're in retirement? And number two, what do you want the assets to do for you once you're gone and you're dead? So we had a pretty good discussion for about 45 minutes. The clients wanted to take a portion of their retirement assets and kind of do something with it right away and start generating income. Because one of the things that they noticed is that for the last year or so, they had been taking money out of their accounts. But by the same token, because of the market drop during the COVID-19, now their income had to drop by force. Not that they wanted to, but they didn't want to take any more money out unless they really needed to, because they didn't want to do it at a point in time when the market was going to continue to go down and they were going to be losing money on their existing retirement assets. So they were concerned about that. And then another portion of the money they wanted to set aside and start pulling that money out at some point in time in the future. Now, because under the new tax law, they don't have to start required minimum distributions until the age of 72, for him, I would be able to buy an additional 6 years of money growing on a tax-deferred basis. And for his wife, since she's 64, I could buy an additional 8 years based on that. Now, we started to discuss a number of things, and as a matter of fact, today on Monday, they became my clients, and they gave me the okay to move forward. And one of the things that we talked about was immediate annuities and also deferred annuities. And the immediate annuities, we were able to take a small portion of their retirement assets, and we were able to buy an immediate annuity that would pay a guaranteed paycheck to both, and we used his assets first, so it would guarantee him an income for life that he cannot outlive. And then because we put a joint survivor benefit assigned to it, upon his passing, his wife would then continue to receive that income for the rest of her life. Now, they have very little life insurance in place. They've had some medical challenges in the last couple of years, so it was going to be very challenging for them to be able to apply for life insurance, although physically they're doing okay today. But from a mortality standpoint, that would be a concern for them down the line. So by the same token, we took a portion of his assets and bought that immediate annuity, which, by the way, for a lot less money, that immediate annuity was also almost replacing 75% of the income that they were generating now from their original portfolio of $807,000, which was non-guaranteed because it depended on how the market did. And I was able to replace it on a guaranteed basis just by taking a portion of the annuity that was in place. I think we're, based on the figures that I did, we're actually taking $222,000 and making that an immediate annuity. Now, the remainder of the assets, which is another $225,000 for him, and then the remainder, actually his wife's entire 403b, which all combined amounts to $647,000. I went ahead and placed into a fixed index annuity. And for those of you that may not know this, a fixed index annuity is a type of annuity program that is deferred, so you're not taking the income immediately because you don't need it. The money obviously grows tax deferred, then obviously you'll pay taxes when you pull the money out at retirement or, at some point in time in the future. What I like about the fixed index annuity scenario and to do a straddle with an immediate annuity is that we can allow those fixed index annuities to continue to grow tax deferred depending on market conditions. The beauty of a fixed index annuity is that you participate in the upswing of the market. So if the market does well, you'll do well. But if the markets go down, as they have recently, then you don't lose your principal, and you don't lose the interest that you had already earned on your principal. So you have principal protection all the way across. Think about going to Vegas, and I've mentioned this before, and you sit at the blackjack table, and the dealer says to you, we're going to change your rules of engagement moving forward. So instead of playing at the table and knowing that you could either lose, tie, which is break even, or push, as they call it in Vegas, or win, so you would have one of those three choices, you're only going to have two choices. And the two choices for you will be that you can only either win or push, which means tie. You'll never be able to lose. The question I always ask on these podcasts is, how long do you think you're going to be sitting at that table? I know in my case, I'm going to be sitting at that table for the rest of my life. So fixed index annuities work the same way. You get to participate on a portion of the growth. Obviously, the insurance company is going to take a smaller portion as well, in order for them to be able to cover their downside protection from an insurance company standpoint, and also to be able to provide those benefits to you. But a fixed index annuity allows you to transfer that risk of stock market volatility from yourself to an insurance company that knows how to manage risk at their very best, as compared to the way you think you may be able to manage this risk. Because in this case, these clients didn't know how to manage risk. So when their account goes from $807,000 to $647,000 in a matter of 4 weeks, then obviously Houston, we have a problem, right? So by just doing this portfolio, number one, I was able to create for them an immediate income right off the bat, which is guaranteed for both of them, which also has an inflation protected feature, which means that as inflation goes up in the future, so will their income. It's already replacing almost 75% of the little money that they were taking out of their non-qualified assets or their qualified assets, where the distribution was non-qualified, because it would only depend on how well they would be doing in the year where they're taking that distribution. And for this year, they hadn't taken any money out because of fears of running out of money before they ran out of life, because the market had taken a beating and they didn't want to compound the problem by taking additional assets. And by the same token, I set up a deferred account. Now, in these deferred accounts, they have access to 10% of their money every year. I divided it in two parts. I did a 7-year fixed index annuity maturity date, and I also did a 10-year maturity date. But they're always going to have access to 10%. So this way, we're setting up a ladder, like climbing a ladder, distribution program that will allow them to have immediate income today. Will have income starting in year 8, and then income starting in year 11 that they cannot outlive, and it will be a survivor benefit type of contract, and will provide income for both of them until they're both gone. And the one for 10 years also has a cash refund at the end, because if both of them were to die at any given point, or they die simultaneously or within a very short time of each other, and there's still money left, while their beneficiaries, in this case we named the grandchildren, would receive the difference, obviously, of whatever remains in the account values. So these are things that only annuities can do. And because of the fact that it is an annuity, I was able to get them a higher payout than if I try to do something with their existing assets by pulling principal and interest, because I wouldn't be able to determine longevity, because I don't know how long they're going to live. They may have a long life. They may have a short life. They may have an average life. Perhaps the wife dies first and the husband second, or the husband first and then the wife second. So because of the fact that I cannot predict a financial outcome, I know that insurance companies can. So I depend on insurance companies to make certain that they can protect and that they can provide guarantees on behalf of all my clients as they start to approach retirement, or at the point in time that they enter retirement. Now, this situation that I have just described to you just happened in the last few days. How many Americans are afraid? How many Americans are scared of what's going to happen in the next few months? All of these unemployment claims, what percentage of those individuals do you think are going to be able to get back into the workforce? How long is it going to take for companies to open and to be fully opened and fully operational? That may take some time. How about people that are individuals that are renters and families that are renters? How long are they going to be able to pay their rent? Are they going to have to be able to move out? Are they going to have to file lawsuits in order to stay in the property that they rented, at least to buy time? What if you own a piece of property? You can only negotiate with the mortgage company up to a certain level and up to a certain period. Some of them are being very candid, and that's very, very good. But you can't do that forever. What if you cannot go back to your job? What if you have to go out looking for another job, just like everybody else will be? It's all about supply and demand and competition. Are you going to have to do something that you've never done in your previous life as far as, work environment is concerned? Are you going to have to learn a new trade? Are you going to have to do anything? Are you going to have to file foreclosure on your property because you can't pay the mortgage? What if one of you, if you're married, one of you gets sick along the way? So there are so many ifs, scenarios that have been created by the catalyst of the COVID-19 virus that is very, very difficult, if not impossible, to predict what's going to happen in the near future. But one way that you can predict your retirement and that you can predict the future is to be able to make guaranteed annuities an integral part of your retirement portfolio. And that's something that is incumbent upon each and every one of us and each and every one of you. If you're 60 years of age, well, then 60% of your retirement assets should be in a guaranteed account, specifically a guaranteed annuity. Why? Because annuity payouts are the highest that you can find in any other type of combination. And the reason for that, as I talked about last week, is because only an insurance company can pay out principal, interest, and mortality credits. Only an insurance company can pay out mortality credits. And the reason for that is that when they do their actuarial payout formulas, they're always considering 10 million lives. So they have the loss of large numbers playing on their favor. So insurance companies may not know when you're going to die, you as an individual. But they know that out of 10 million 65-year-olds today, 5 million are not going to reach retirement age, which would be either age 87 if you're a male or age 89 if you're a female. So they know that half of you are not going to make it to the promised land, which is mortality age, but then half of you will, and many of you are going to surpass it. So because of that formula from an actuarial and mathematical standpoint, insurance companies can afford to pay a higher payout benefit, a higher and a greater paycheck for each and every one in that 10 million pool, because they know, factually speaking, how many people are going to die in any given year based on their age. So they don't have to worry about longevity. Because if you try to emulate something like that, you can't do it because you just don't know when you're going to die. You're either going to take too much and run out of money before you run out of life, or you're going to take too little and you're not going to really have a good, enjoyable life. And the reason why you won't is because fear is going to drive all your decision-making process, because what if, and what if. So by making certain that you take that fear of longevity and the guessing game of dictating how much to take on any given year based on the return of those assets, then a portion of your retirement income should be guaranteed. I mean, in a perfect world, it should all be guaranteed. But at least, your age. So you take your age from 100, and that's the amount that should be guaranteed. Because at the end of the day, I've never had a retiree tell me that they hate their retirement paychecks. And for those of you that still don't know what an annuity is, well, if you are going to be collecting Social Security benefits, or you're collecting Social Security benefits, then you have an annuity. If you're collecting a public pension because you work in the public sector for years, then you have an annuity. If you work for a private company that had the luxury of offering a private pension to their employees, then you also have an annuity. So anything that can provide guaranteed cash flow, which is a big difference in retirement, is an annuity. Now you can sequentially set up your annuity not only to take care of your fixed expenses, but also your variable expenses. I have clients of mine that want all of their fixed expenses and all of their variable expenses taken care of through guaranteed annuities. I have other clients that just want their fixed expenses. So it depends entirely up to you. So I thought it would be a good idea to kind of walk you through this client that I just acquired this morning and kind of give you the history and the background from a business perspective, so you can get a feel for what the capabilities are when it comes to securing your retirement. And by the way, although these clients had lost some decent money in their account because of this, their income is not suffering. They could have even done a higher immediate annuity, but they chose not to do so. So that's something that's very important to all of you. Now, if you need to get a hold of me, obviously, you can always call me at area code 786-766-1042. You can also send me an email at Bert, B-E-R-T, at bertsalazar.com, BERTSALAZAR.com. And I'll be more than happy to schedule a call with you, whether it's a conference call or a video conference. And then you can pick my brain as to any questions any financial issues that may be keeping you awake at night. And as I always say at the very end of every podcast, my goal for each and every one of you is to kind of help you change the way that you see things. Because when you change the way that you see things, the things that you see change. So again, thanks so much for giving me a few minutes of your time. Stay healthy, keep your safe distancing, and I'll talk to you again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.